from Israel. It's the 12th of January, 2022. We are looking at chapter 10 of Daniel and perhaps 11 and 12. I don't know how far we'll get, Frank. 12 does not deal with so much of what's going to happen, but it deals with a situation that Daniel's in, and that is explaining why and how he knows what he knows. Okay? So look at 10. In the 3rd year of Koresh, which is probably Cyrus, king of Persia, we know that on the chart it only showed 2 years for Cyrus, but if he went into his 3rd year, they would say 3rd year, even though the reins may have turned over to Darvish. And a certain word was certain to come true, and it involved a great army. Sometimes we miss that part of this chapter, a great army. Okay, I want to help us understand why there's these great armies. He understood the word and gained understanding from his vision. Okay, this is after the vision of seeing this mighty angel. And I'm not going to read the whole chapter, but he had been fasting for 3 weeks, and it was the first month of the year, so that would have been April. That means he didn't do Pesach. They didn't do Pesach when they were outside the land, I guess. There was some notion, I think, given in the Torah that when they were in the land, that's the way they were supposed to keep it. Okay. So that may be why he wasn't keeping Pesach, but he was fasting because he wanted to understand what he had seen. And this may include chapter 9, and it might include 8. But he's trying to put it all together and understand it. So on the 24th day of the month, that's when he was along the great river Tigris. And I raised my eyes and looked, and behold, there was this man. It looked like a man. But it's the great angel, and my guess is Gabriel, because he's the one that helps Daniel understand things in other visions. So he's struck down, and then this explanation comes from this one that has come to him. And he says, I came in response to your words. This is in verse 12. But the prince of the kingdom of Persia stood opposing me for 21 days. And then Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me after I had remained there with the kings of Persia. Okay, I want to try and unpack this the way I understand it.
What verse was that?
That was in verse 12, 13. I've heard of lots of explanations, but they're all based on what you think of various things in the Bible. So I go back to Psalm 8, where it says, David says, you've made me a man. What is man? What is a mortal? That you have made me a little less than Elohim in the Hebrew. Yeah. Elohim can mean rulers. It can mean divine beings, and it can mean God. So take your pick. Which one are you going to say it is? My pick is it's a little less than God. And why do I say that? God, we are made in his image. There is no other creature in all of creation that is made in God's image. So I'm saying that David is just astounded. He has this will. He is like God. He can order things and do things. And it comes to pass because of this will that God has given him. He has been made a little less than God. Now, what are we going to do with that? That's the question. It's a powerful gift. It's a powerful idea that God has made us. Okay, so the angels have been given to guard us. People talk about a guardian angel for us. They are also messengers to us with messages from God,
Right.
but we're greater than them. So when it says I had to fight against the god of Persia, or the how does he put it? The kingdom of Persia, the prince. Okay, the prince.
The chief prince.
Now, what gives these angels the power that they have?
Mm-hmm.
If they are just a little lower than us, it must be our will, what we want, because they're given to us.
Yeah, but in Job, it sounds like God sends them on certain journeys too, or something.
Yeah, he sends them throughout the earth, what is going on in the earth. They can come back and report, and the guy in Persia can say, well, I've got the power there, I'm in charge. Or I'm struggling with the guy from the media area, and I'm going to be in charge.
Yeah.
And God says, okay, then. But it's like that guy down there that you're obeying. Who is he obeying? Is he obeying me? Or is he obeying some other idea?
Mm-hmm.
And we call them demons, but they're ideas that we glom onto and give it power. Mm-hmm. So Cyrus is about to be deposed.
Yeah.
The king, he's a Mede,
Mm-hmm.
and the Persian guy, Darius, is going to take over. So Darius doesn't want anything to do. Darius is the one that's going to allow the people in the northern part of Israel who are against them building a temple. He's going to listen to them rather than the edict that Cyrus gave.
He's the one that stopped the building. Yeah.
Right. So you can see there's a tension there, right?
There's struggle, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Why is there the tension? It starts within a man's heart.
Mm-hmm.
Cyrus knew that God, he had heard the prophet Jeremiah. He knew that God wanted those people to go back and build a temple. He maybe even knew the history of Nebuchadnezzar and said, I don't want to be deposed like that, because he didn't acknowledge the God of heaven.
Mm-hmm.
So it said specifically that Cyrus wanted to obey the God of heaven, okay? And he wanted to exalt the God of heaven. Mm-hmm. But the Persian guy, the other guy that the two were having to share the throne, it reminds me of Israel today, two people throne, oh my goodness. So this Michael, that's the other thing I want to say. You and I have guardian angels.
Yeah.
But each government has an angel over it. So in other words, the king has an extra angel he's empowering to help him in his government.
Yeah.
There were two in this government. There was the Koresh line from Media, and then there was the Persian line. So that creates a tension. We've got that kind of tension right now here.
So the media or the Medes were in a way separate from Assyria then?
The Medes were basically in the Assyrian regime.
Okay.
The Medes lived up in the northern eastern part of the land.
So they were a section of Persia or something.
Persia was just south of them. And Babylon was where the Chaldeans were. And Assyria had all of that. Babylon defeated Assyria generally. So that brought the people in the Medes in the Persian area under Babylon.
Right.
They overthrew Babylon.
So then the Medes and the Persians overthrew Babylon.
Yeah, and so now Assyria has disintegrated as far as an empire, and the Medes and the Persians have it.
Yeah. So they were kind of joined together then.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is, the man on the ground has the power that his will is what is being done by these angels or these princes
Yeah, and we see how long Daniel fasted and prayed. So,
for 3 weeks
yeah.
to get through to. So that means that the little kingdom of Israel over here that's under the power of this bigger kingdom, they are not free yet.
No.
They're home. If they're not really home either, because only 40% of them went home.
Yeah.
But they're struggling to gain power because they're believing in God, and if you read Nehemiah and Ezra, you know they're really struggling again to be really for God. And I was just reading in that book that I've been reading about the times way back from that time through to the fall of the Second Temple.
Yeah.
And it said that at one point they had a revival, and it may have been during Ezra's time. And I know that I've heard Jews speak of this, the big assembly at a praying time when they threw out the idols. And there was no more idol worship from that time on. God gave them a revival.
Wow.
And they shun idols. I'm not saying that their hearts now are set on things on the earth, but they don't worship idols themselves. Yeah. Okay. But we still, so we have what is called angel war. But that's only reflecting
Star Wars.
Yeah, right. And that's where this Star Wars stuff comes from. In Judges, it talks about the stars fighting in the battle between Israel and Aram.
Oh, yeah.
And what the god of Aram, I believe, is called Meroz.
Oh, yeah.
And it says the stars were fighting. Now, that would have been the stars of Israel and the stars. So what the star, we've heard people say the star represents an angel.
Yeah,
so there you got your Star Wars.
There's a psalm that says that all the stars are named, which is interesting.
Yes. But for the people that believe that we are just under God and not under angels, the angels are not directing these wars.
No.
It's coming from the hearts of men.
Wow.
And if you've got 7 billion people on the earth, can it be any wonder that we have wars and wars and wars and floods of wars? That's what Daniel was seeing. And he says here he sees a great war.
Yeah.
He's trying to understand about this great war. And this angel, Gabriel, is trying to get to him so he can explain it to him. And it took 3 weeks to get past the Prince of Persia.
Quite a struggle.
Yes.
I wonder what he had to do.
I don't know, but I want to show you why what is going on in even a deeper way. At least this is from my perspective. Remember when Stanley Jones said there's 3 things that motivate a person? And usually people are motivated by one or the other, not all 3. There's the power driven person, the goal-oriented person, and the herd people. Okay? Yeah. All of them have guardian angels. Okay? The power guy usually is one that gets the herd following him. The goal-oriented guy, it depends on what his goals are. But in a ruler, the goal guy that wants to do the right thing for the people is the kind that God would choose, okay? The power guy, he just wants to accumulate a lot of power, and he knows it's in the people. The more of the herd he gets, the more power he has. Why does he know it's in the people? Because we each have a will. You get a collective will together, and you got a big power. Okay? So now he doesn't want any power to overshadow him. So now he says, well, I'll get together with these other guys that want power, and we'll talk about a one world government.
Mhm.
We'll coalesce all of this power. But each of them is thinking in his heart, who's going to be the top guy? So the plan really is first get all these people following each of these leaders, and we'll coalesce and bring them all together into one, and then we'll have peace on earth,
Yeah.
which is no peace at all.
No.
Because the power grabbers are always going to be the one that wants to be at the top. So then you get this power grabbing and warring. The ones that want to do what's best for the people are putting their finger up in the air and trying to find out what the people want.
Yeah.
Well, what if the people have the power, have this kind of power that they can give to a leader? What is in the heart of the people?
Mhm.
Okay, now we're getting back to God trying to find a nation
Yeah.
that wants His will to be done.
Right. Right. Amen.
Now, how does He get that? He starts with a father, Father Abraham. He found someone that he said he would teach his family.
Yeah.
So I'm going to talk to him. I'm going to reveal my will to him. Okay, so now let's look at it again. Where is the power of the people? It's in the fathers. What happens if the fathers cannot direct their family into the knowledge of God?
Oh boy.
Now you're losing your values. And if you don't have a father at all, what do you have? So Malachi says, the hearts of the children must be turned to the fathers, or the land will be ruined.
Wow. Wow. That's powerful.
So you see how it begins and why God is looking for one nation. If he could just get one nation on board with the same will,
Yeah.
he can bring peace to the earth.
Yeah.
Because once they know there's a God in heaven that's in charge, and it's not a man, they know that they've run into a power greater than themselves, and they can't fight it.
Yeah.
So this is why God says, there is only one, I'm the only God, and there is none beside me. It has to be a unity in believing in this one God. He says, I'm not mortal. Why? Because mortal fails. They tell lies. And he says, I'm not a mortal, and I'm not born of a mortal. Therefore, I am God, and I alone am God. And once we come under the authority of God, first the king, then the fathers, then the family is following because they're like the herd. They give their power to the leader. Then God can work into that nation to make it a pure nation. Okay? That is the source of the struggle on earth. Because everybody wants to be big cheese, or they want something good for the people, and the people don't know what's good for them. That's one of the big problems. Okay, so Daniel is beginning to understand this, and he was weakened by all of this because it was so overwhelming. But he says, now I must return, that's Gabriel, or this angel that's talking to him, to fight the prince of Persia. And when I leave, the prince of Greece, or Ionia, will come.
Uh-huh.
Nevertheless, I shall tell you what is written in the book of truth, and there is no one who supports me against these except for Michael, your prince. Okay, what's the book of truth?
Yeah.
That is how God sees and wants it done.
Okay. Yeah, but that's not a reference to the Torah then.
Well, yes, the Torah gives us the truth, but it's even greater, I think, than the Torah, because it's the full plan of God for the world and everything. You can get that from the Torah,
Okay.
but
Yeah, right.
you have to think it through like I've just done with you on this power struggle. And this helps us understand chapter 11 because it says, and I in the first year of Darvesh the Mede was serving as his strengthener and his refuge. And now I'll tell you the truth. He's who is this saying this? That's a comma between 10 and 11. It's and I is the angel that's speaking to Daniel.
That's in verse.
That's verse 1 of 11.
Okay.
And I, in the first year of Darvesh the Mede, was serving as his strengthener and his refuge.
Mm-hmm.
So now this angel Gabriel, is helping the Mede because the Mede is taken over.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And he says,
I thought it was Persia. I thought that was Persia that took over from the
yeah,
Mede.
it was. Yeah, well, it was. And I don't know why Darvesh the Mede is mentioned.
Yeah.
Because,
Oh, that's right.
and this is why some people say they don't know whether Darius is Cyrus or Cyrus is Darius.
What?
There's some confusion about it, but I can
Okay.
see why.
Yeah.
And so I'm not going to try and figure that one out. But when he says, and now I will tell you the truth, all the previous chapter is introducing what this angel wants to say. It's all the circumstances that brings about why he wants him to know the truth. Okay? Can you see it? And so he begins to explain. There's two dots. That means a colon. I'm going to tell you now.
No, what's the two colons?
The colon comes after the word truth. I will tell you the truth.
Which is in verse
2.
2.
It says, and now I will tell you the truth is verse 2 of chapter 11. I don't know if it's the same in Christian Bibles or not.
I know. That's all right. Go ahead.
So he tells him that there are 3 more kings in line to rule Persia.
Mm-hmm.
So in some sense, they're giving Persia the greater recognition as the kingdom,
Yeah.
even though it includes the Medes.
Right, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now, I wanted to just say one thing. The Medes had more of the 10 Israel, or the northern tribe,
Oh,
and Koresh, or Cyrus, may have had, and I think I've even read this, he was a descendant of, on one side of his family, of the 10
really?
Israel.
Oh,
And this may have prompted why his heart was able to say, I want the God of Israel, to be the God
yeah.
that it is.
So he might have been connected to Israel that was dispersed by Assyria.
Right. So that's why it gets a little confusing about who's a Persian, who is of Mede, because the two really become one big kingdom.
Yeah, I was thinking it was one big kingdom.
Yeah. And then a fourth will accumulate. All right, there's 3 more lying to rule Persia, and the fourth will accumulate most of the wealth and empowered by his riches. So the fourth is 3 kings after the one that is there now.
Right.
Okay. And so then he says, he will stir up everyone against the king of Ionia.
Is that Greece?
That's Greece. So Persia actually lets themselves be known to Greece. So that's why Alexander the Great comes all the way to Persia.
Oh.
He may not have even thought about Persia because it wasn't like Assyria. It didn't have the landmass that Assyria had. And he maybe wouldn't even think about it as being an entity that he had to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
But it says here that this fourth king arises against Ionia, against Greece. So they let themselves know that we are empowered to be dealt with. And so then you get chapter 8 where he gets the vision of how Greece comes in with the one horn, and the horn gets split and all that.
Yeah.
So with the chapter 11, I don't really want to go into all the detail because it talks about the king of the south and the king of the north, and these are two kingdoms that came out of Greece.
Okay.
And
two kings came out of Greece.
Well, Greece got divided between four generals,
Right.
And they took the kingdom of Greece covered all the land that Persia had and Assyria had. So now within that kingdom, we have this struggle between the north and the south.
And yet in Rome that came up, that was later.
Well, then Rome comes in and takes over.
Yeah.
This 11th chapter is very long and very detailed about these battles. And everybody's trying to guess. Well, not everybody. All the Christians are trying to guess who's the big guy. Who's the Antichrist?
Yeah.
They use that term. The term should be who's anti-God.
Yeah.
So, because God's the one that puts in the Messiah. Messiah is a king.
Yeah.
He appoints, anoints a Messiah. That's what it means. Okay, so we don't want to make a big deal about Messiah. The only reason why Messiah is a big deal is because every king has this power over the nation. He has a guardian angel that is doing his bidding. If your guardian angel is Michael, who is sent from God and that you want God's will, then you've got a mighty king. Okay? Because he's doing God's will. God's the one that's in charge.
It's very interesting because there must be quite an angel war going on between the angel of Israel and the angel of Iran.
Exactly. Absolutely. It starts down on the ground right here on earth with man's will because we are just a little less than God. We are the ones that were given the power to rule this earth.
If I was Iran, I'd be a little afraid.
Well, I think I would be too. Because in the end, God says the Adam, the mortal, that wins is the one that puts his bets on me, if you want to call it that way. So if you want to bet who's going to win, it's not the little guy you see over there in Israel that everybody's trying to get rid of.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe it is.
Yeah, right.
But somehow the angels or the powers that are stirred up because of the strength of each man on earth, they have a feeling that, that word of God might come true because it's been coming true for many centuries. We've got to get rid of those guys.
What can we do?
We've got to get rid of them.
This is too hard. We keep trying to get rid of them and they don't disappear.
That's because God said they would be my witness. They witness to their own badness and their own goodness. And when they're good, they're really good, and God gets the glory.
This is a long chapter.
It's a very long chapter. That's why I'm not going to read every verse. But there's armed forces will be swept away before him, down in verse 22. He will come in peaceably, but will seize the kingdom with deceitful trickery. Armed forces will be swept away before him and broken, even the prince of the covenant. Now, prince of the covenant means there's a covenant that God made with Israel. The prince of the covenant is Michael. He's the one that's Israel's guardian angel. So we see that Michael is always having to struggle against these forces that want to get rid of Israel. And so, and from the moment of forming an alliance, okay, so he will act deceitfully. Okay, this is the power that is trying to get in good with Israel, but it has all the time the idea of overthrowing it. When does that take place? We don't know in all of this stuff because Rome came in.
Yeah.
And so the historians who have read this history from the time of the Persian through the Roman period, they see that this is following exactly what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't believe Daniel wrote it because it's so accurate. Isn't that something?
Yeah.
But this is what this angel just showed him. And so we even get down to Egyptians, the Libyans, and the Cushites. Well, some people are basing what they say is happening based on what Egypt is doing and what the Libya and all those guys along the coast of the Mediterranean Sea are doing. And all of that is in the end of the chapter. And from the moment of forming an alliance, he will act deceitfully, will attack and overpower the ally. That's not where I'm. Oh, 14. But rumors from the east.
What?
44. Sorry, I thought I was seeing 14. 44. But rumors from the east and north will alarm, and he will go forth in a huge fury to destroy and exterminate many peoples. And he will set up splendid greeting pavilions between the seas and the beautiful mountain. That could, I don't know how much of this includes Rome and what Rome became to the end of the days, because Daniel was told that he was being explained to the end of days.
Yeah.
He can't understand what's going on. He's just getting the names and the peoples that are seen, because he's told at the end of 12, this is not going to happen in your time. And it's for a very long time in the future, and that's when it will be revealed. So close up the book. Anyway, let's this person that's gathering many people to exterminate God's people will arrive at their own end, and no one will help him. And at that time,
Where was that? What verse is that?
that's the first verse of 12.
Oh, okay.
At that time, Michael will arise, the great prince, guardian of the children of your people.
Wow. There it is.
That means the children of God will have gotten their act together in order for Michael to have this kind of power. You see what I'm saying?
And that's still waiting to happen.
That's still waiting to happen. We're trying to get it together. It's a long ways from it when you see them wanting to destroy good people that love God's land, love God with all their heart, being thrown out of their houses and their vineyards broken up. That's terrible. And there will be a time of great trouble, the likes of which has not happened since nations came to be in time. Now, this is not after Michael arises. This is before he comes to help. This happens in prophecy. They do not always give it in the order of the sequence. What happens.
Chronology. Yeah.
Okay, and at that time your people will escape all of them found written in the book.
Mm-hmm.
There's a book for a nation. Mm-hmm. There's a book for a person.
Yeah.
And there's a book for the world.
Mm-hmm.
And many of those sleeping in the dust of the earth will awaken. There's some people that don't believe that they go to heaven. Mm-hmm. They believe that in soul sleep. They call it soul sleep.
Yeah, right.
Which soul? The nefesh or the neshama?
Yeah, right.
The neshama, if it hasn't been built, if you haven't built who you are into that neshama, it's sort of bare. It's just what God gave you when you were born. That's if you've done total wickedness all your life. Well, I believe you'll soul sleep. The nefesh will go into the ground.
Yeah, right.
The nefesh is the physical. So it says here, many of those sleeping in the dust of the earth will be awakened.
Mm.
Okay, some of them that believe in soul sleep. Now, why am I saying believe? Because we get what we believe.
Mm.
If you believe you go to heaven or go to God,
Yeah.
then you will be before God. If you believe that you're going to go into the ground and sleep for this time, then you'll go into the ground and sleep till this time. So, some to everlasting life, and some to humiliations, and some to eternal degradation. That means you'll always be shameful. The humiliations is facing up to what you did and didn't get done. I would hate to have the job of sorting these things out. I'm glad it's God's job. And those who are wise will shine like the radiance of the sky, and those who lead the many to righteous path will shine like stars forever. Okay. So, where did it say open the books? There's some place here where it says open the books. Oh, it was earlier that he said the books would be open, I guess, but in here it says, whose name is found written in the book. That's the book of the world.
Yeah.
But was a scripture that says the books will be open, and I think we've read that earlier in Daniel.
Okay.
Because I remember talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
And each of us are a book. Each nation has a book. And then there's the book of the world.
Mm-hmm.
So the books are opened. And that reveals everything that has been done on the earth, because man was given earth to rule over it. And what have we done with it?
Mm-hmm.
And what part have each of us individually had in it?
Mm-hmm.
Did the mothers try to help the children honor their father and listen to him? That would empower the father. Did the father follow what the word of God says and impart that to the children? All of this is like building a house.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then what did the fathers do in the nation? And what did the nation become? And how did the nation act in the world to make it God's world?
Yeah.
So that's what we're all time. Many people will be refined, cleansed, purified, but the wicked people will do wicked things, and none of the wicked will understand. They'll never understand this, Frank. I could talk till I'm blue in the face, and they won't understand. But the wise will understand. And then he talks about something here that I can't understand. And from the time that the daily sacrifice will be taken away, that would have been in 70 A.D.
What verse
Or
is that?
that's in verse 11.
Oh, okay.
Taken away. And the desolating abomination is set up. There will be 1,290 days. So I've never tried to figure out if from 70 A.D. until the first house, the one that the Romans put in for Jupiter on the Temple Mount,
Oh, yeah.
was it 1,290 days? I mean, I don't know. That's how many years? There's 365 days in a year, 64 days in a year. So that goes into 1,200, about 400 years.
Yeah.
That's a little bit more than well, maybe no, it would. Yeah, it might come out about the time that Rome put Jupiter on the Temple Mount.
Mm-hmm.
Then it says, "Happy is he who waits till the 135." Well, that's only 75 or some odd days later. So now what are we talking about? I have no idea. In other words, if you live through the first abomination, you're doing okay. Maybe that's what it is. Because Israel got put down again there at that point. But you go to your end and rest, and you will arise to your destiny at the end of days. You're going to get to be resurrected, Daniel. You're going to get to see all of this.
Yeah.
And you won't understand it till then, Daniel. And those of us who are living in those last days, we should understand a little bit of it anyway. So that concludes Daniel. And I think, Frank, what I would like to do is to go back and sort of give a summary of some of the things in Ezekiel that we haven't dealt with specifically that people are interested in.
Okay.
And that will close the series. Okay.
Sounds good.
So this might be a little longer than usual, but
That's all right.
we'll
I enjoyed it.
we'll talk to you again next week and have a good week. Lord bless you.